Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone is doing alright today. As the Premier League season now starts to draw towards a climax, can Newcastle maintain that top 4 position that we have been flirting with all season long? Can Newcastle actually get Champions League football under their first full season since the takeover? Just to let you guys know, by the way, a bit of a heads up here, I'm actually doing a second video, a follow-up to this. So on Thursday, I'm going to upload a video on my channel where I'm sitting down with a journalist and we're going to talk about Newcastle's season so far and what you guys should expect to happen from this football club if we can, in fact, get Champions League football next season. What should you guys expect from the club? So that's going to be on Thursday. So if you're new around here, make sure you get down there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that upload. And secondly, if you like what you're watching here, make sure you get down there, smash the like button. Finally, regarding this video, so we're going to be reacting to this article that came out last night that's saying that Newcastle are planning to sign 4 elite level signings in the summer window. They've actually got a list of targets as well, so we're going to go through the players. We're going to discuss in this video about the article, the legitimacy, I guess, behind it, and what Newcastle should be doing based on the evidence we've seen from previous transfer windows. So make sure you let me know down in the comment section your thoughts on it, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. I think it's best to start this video off first by addressing the elephant in the room, and that being it's still completely dependent on what league position Newcastle end up going into at the end of the season. Of course, the higher Newcastle finish, the better offer would be for us. Champions League football, you're playing football on Tuesday, Wednesdays instead of the Thursdays. It might not sound like much, but that extra 1 to 2 days would be huge for the football club preparing for the games on Sunday. As well as that, in the Champions League, you generate more revenue than you would in the Europa League or Conference League. And under financial fair play, Newcastle can only spend what the club generates. And if you earn more money, European competition, naturally you can spend more money on transfers. So it's better off for the club to get that. As well as that, for fans, for example, me, I'm going to places like Barcelona and Naples instead of like Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, places that aren't probably the best for football fans to go. And of course, as well as that, the higher you finish in the league table, the better off the bonus will be at the end of the season. So you finish 3rd instead of 6th, you make more money off the Premier League because of where you finish in the league table. So again, it's in the club's best interest to finish as high as possible. And I think football fans watching this video, I can imagine everyone watching this video wants top 4 football. So the club is going to be doing the best they can to get that. Now, the reason why I mention this is because Eddie Howe's actually stayed on the record in a press conference a couple of weeks ago that there's 3 separate transfer budgets depending on where the club finishes in the league table. So once again, you finish high enough in the table, you got to buy a full new squad anyway with European football. So I think Newcastle will invest heavily, but with Champions League football, you also got that attraction as well. Players are going to be more enticed to join Premier League teams playing Champions League football than if we're in the Conference League or Europa League. It sounds greedy from players, but it's just how it is in today's game. You've got Champions League football players who want to play for you, so it's in our best interest to be an attractable club to make it enticer for world-class, I mean state-of-the-art world-class players that actually come into this football club. We've got a serious chance of doing that now. But yeah, just a heads up, Eddie Howe has stated that it's 3 separate transfer budgets dependent on where the club finishes in the table. Let's get into the article now. So Luke Edwards yesterday posted an exclusive article. Now this is a journalist to Newcastle fans. I imagine a lot of people will class this. Some of you call a negative journalist. So this is somebody that will only post the bad sides of a football club and not post anything positive. If you think that way about him, trust me, you'll love this article he posted last night. So he's posted an article stating that Newcastle are planning on signing 4 elite level signs in the summer transfer window. So before we get into what players he's on about, we'll begin off with what his initial budget was for the summer window. So he initially said a little while back now that Newcastle originally planned on having £20 million plus player sales in the window. So you're probably looking at between £40 to £50 million realistically, you would say, from player sales. Due to the fact now, the only players Newcastle probably offload are a lot of older players who you let go on a free anyway or just give over the contracts. And maybe the likes of maybe adding St Maximin. I still got a sneaky feeling in the back of my mind the club might actually attempt to sell him in the window. But other than that, really, you would expect to keep all your key star players that cost a lot of money anyway. So I can't really see Newcastle making much money off players. So that was Luke Edwards' initial transfer budget, and now he's saying Newcastle can sign 4 elite level signings. But I think the best way you can look at something like this is actually look at the evidence already at our disposal. In the previous 3 transfer windows, Newcastle have already spent well over £200 million on players. The first transfer window, when you're 19th of the table, you're buying the likes of Bruno, £40 million. Trippier was £12 million. Dan Burn was the same amount of money. Target was a loan sign. Chris Wood, £25 million. Second transfer window, you got Isak, of course, well over £60 million. I mean, I could go on and on all day. And then our last transfer window, Anthony Gordon, £40 million. We've spent a lot of money on players. And you're thinking this before European football. When you have European football, Newcastle will have to sign more players because you're playing more matches. I think Newcastle's squad depth still lacks compared to, I guess, the big six in the league. So I think Newcastle do definitely still need to invest. You almost need a second squad and to enable the European football. Let's say Callum Wilson gets injured now. You're stuck with Isak playing more games next season. I mean, it's a lot of pressure on just a single player. So you've got a lot of areas of the pitch that you still need an extra player with. And as for the elite level signings, well, let's get into what names he suggested. On the screen now is a following list from Luke Edwards with all the names shortlisted that he believes the club will be planning on looking into in the summer transfer window. There was a lot of seriously good names on there, so let's get through some of the Premier League ones first. We'll start off with James Maddison. Of course, this is the player that Newcastle had 2 official bids in for last summer, but Leicester City wanted more money. They refused to sell him. And now, in my honest personal opinion, I fully expect Leicester City to go down to the Championship. They've lost 8 of the last 9 games. They haven't got much fight left in them, to be honest. I know they've had a good second half against Man City, but I think Man City just gave off the 25 minutes. So, when you look at their season, I can't see them staying up. I know they're only a good few points away, but honestly, I think they're completely out of it now. And so, James Maddison in the Championship, he'll be sold straight away. The only problem being if Leicester go down is more Premier League teams are going to want James Maddison. Newcastle have got to convince him to come to us, which I do fancy your chances, to be fair. It just depends on who comes in for him. As well as the likes of Conor Gallagher. I'm not a fan of Conor Gallagher, you know. I don't really think he'd be an improvement on the team. I've seen Declan Rice in there. Declan Rice again, depending on West Ham goes down to the Championship. Now, the thing with Declan Rice is also a lot of London teams are always after him. I think Chelsea last season wanted them. The likes of Arsenal, I think Arsenal will be a really good fit for him. So I think Declan Rice will be a better player for our teams to come in for. So I think he'll be a harder one to bring in. But again, here's an interesting one. Mitoma from Brighton. I think Mitoma's a really good player as well. I think Brighton are quite smart with selling players. So Newcastle, if we wanted someone like Mitoma, you got to spend a ridiculous amount of money on him. So I don't think he's much of a realistic one. Calvin Phillips from Man City. I think Calvin Phillips is a really, really good one to bring in. He's somebody that's had very little game time for Man City this season. He's a brilliant football player. He's somebody I think will be looking to leave in the summer. And I think for Newcastle, if you wanted him, then I think it's a good sign for us. Again, the problem that you're going to have with the likes of Manchester City, though, is why would Manchester City sell to Newcastle United? I mean, we are now a team that we haven't this season, but I think long-term will pose a threat to them. A team that's going to be knocking on the door and be posing a threat to their either domestic cup competitions or towards the Premier League. So why would Man City give us their players? It would only benefit them if Newcastle spend loads of money. But I mean, Newcastle could just go out and buy someone else. So again, I think it's a bit of a tricky one there. Kieran Tierney and Scott McTominay being the 2 linked players that Newcastle have been after all season long. My honest thoughts on those 2, I actually generally think Tierney's a good sign. I honestly think from Arsenal, if it's possible to bring in again, you got to think Arsenal and Man U would really want to sell to us. I think Tierney honestly would be a good sign. And Scott McTominay, I'm not the biggest fan of. The way I kind of look at it is, do these players get into Newcastle starting 11? Would they improve what we already have? And I think Newcastle, you should only be looking to bring in players that you think improve the squad, or youngsters like Houseman Ashby, who over the next few seasons you'd expect to break in. I don't think you should be signing players just to be on the bench, because why would you do that? I don't get it at all. You would only surely sign players that you'd be looking playing first team football long term. So that's kind of my mindset behind it. I don't think Scott McTominay would do that over Longstaff. So honestly, for me, I wouldn't say yes to him, but I would say yes to Tierney. I think he long term could get into the starting 11. As for some of the abroad players at the bottom, you're seeing like the Aussie man in there, Thuram, Diaby, the Napoli guy. I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname at the bottom, but we've got some unbelievable talents in that shortlist there. Thuram's had a phenomenal season. Diaby was a player that Newcastle actually wanted to get back in the summer, but he wasn't wanting to be sought at the time. So it's a case now that Newcastle will continue to knock on the door. If you get Champions League football, bringing these players in, it'll be a lot easier than you think. It's just a case that Newcastle need to find the right options. What players does Eddie Howe want for his squad? What players does the ownership want? It's one of those ones where the club will look over the shortlist. They'll narrow the shortlist down and they'll go after the key players that they want. Now, the thing with Newcastle as well is I think we definitely need a wide player. You got to look at our wide players this season. I know Angwon's had an unbelievable first half of the season, but he's been injured the second half. He's injured, just came back now. He's somebody that I still think you want to improve on, as good as he's been. Sim Maxman scored once this season. He hasn't scored anywhere near enough goals you would want from a player his calibre. I still think he's a good player, but he's just not getting the goal contributions I think we would want. I just think he's underperforming in terms of that aspect. Joe Linton occasionally plays out wide, but I much prefer him in the middle. Anthony Gordon hasn't got any goal contributions yet I think he's played about 8, 9 or 10 games, something like that. So he needs to hopefully kick on at some point. But again, he's still quite young, so got plenty of time for that to happen. But Newcastle, I do definitely think need an established player in there. And with those sort of options out there, it's an absolute no-brainer. As for the transfer budget, I think it's probably better to do a separate video on the budget itself, because I could be here for the next 20 minutes talking about how the club's doing the transfer window. So we'll discuss that. As I said again, I'm going to be doing a video for journalists on Thursday. So I probably will mention a little bit about that in there and what you guys should expect budget-wise from the club. But finally, as for the 4 elite level signings, out of that list there, let's say you had to pick 4 players to sign. Which 4 players would you pick from that list? Make sure to let me know down in the comment section. I'm quite intrigued to see which ones people would pick. But yeah, some brilliant names on there. An actual positive article from Luke Edwards. It's really got me excited. So I think that's a good one to talk about. I honestly expect Newcastle to generally sign loads of players in the transfer window, because we don't have a choice, because we're going to have European football. You need more players in, so naturally you're just going to sign a bunch of players. So I don't think it's unrealistic at all. I think the options on there, the majority of them, I think Newcastle could honestly, if they really wanted to, go actually after it and sign. So yeah, I don't think it's a BS article. I think there is a lot of legitimacy behind it. But anyway, guys, make sure you let me know your thoughts down below. Do you like the comments made by Luke Edwards? Do you think there's a good players in the list there, that short list he has? But I hope you enjoy watching. Quite an exciting time to be around this football club. We've still got work to be done though. We've got to make sure we can finish as high as possible. Still 8 more games in our point of view. It's in all our hands now. If we drop out the Champions League, we only have ourselves to blame. So we'll see how we do. I'm confident in this football club. I know no matter what, we're going to give it all. So let's make sure we can get it done. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.